A lot of people are just dazed and confused because they're always on their frickin' phones. They don't think anymore. There's a lot of BS out there.
Do you have an iPhone?
I don't have a phone.
You still have a flip phone? Or not even that?
I've never had a cell phone.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
I'm a dinosaur, man. I don't care how big and bad you are. Someone puts their finger in your eye,
That's right.
you're going to be grabbing your face. There is no ultimate self-defense. As long as you can kick, punch, gouge, bite, knee, elbow, pull hair, throw, you're doing okay. There is no, okay, someone's going to attack, this is the technique you're going to use. That's BS. What have the Kardashians ever done for society?
Thank you for tuning into the Okinawa Karate Podcast. I am Josh Simmers, coming to you from Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania, my hometown, and I am sitting next to Master Kevin Robinson in the Tang Soo Do studio here on Tioga Street. Master Robinson, thank you so much for allowing me to come in here and train with you today.
Thank you.
As you know, my high school friend that I graduated with, Mr. Drew Hobbs, invited me in here. I knew Drew trained here years ago. Took a bit of a hiatus, I think he did. Then he got back into it. So I saw him at basically our class reunion, which is known as the Tunkhannock Carnival, on Saturday, and he said, "Why don't you come on down and train?" I asked if I can come down and train, basically. But you guys opened the door, and I really do appreciate it. Great time. Right off the bat, I want to say this. They broke the stereotype. They did not have the air conditioning on. It is August 4th, I think, August 5th, something like that. I don't know what the temperature is today or the humidity, but it was pretty steamy, and they did not have the air conditioning. So not all dojos in America use air conditioning. That is the myth has been busted.
Well, fact on that, when I bought this building, that was the first thing I ripped out of here. We have no air conditioning. I didn't turn it on because there is none. I don't believe in air conditioning. So you want to sweat, get the impurities
Nobody
out.
can say, Master Robinson, at least turn on the AC. We don't have it.
Yeah,
we
don't have it. I'll open the door and turn a fan on.
Yep, that's what we did. So, sweating profusely here in Tunkhannock as I did in Okinawa. He is still soaking wet, which I absolutely love. So I was quite pleased about that.
Well, thank you. It was our pleasure.
Let's get talking about your history, your style, your life in the martial arts. If you don't mind, take us back to square one. What got you started?
Okay, so square one, I was 12 years old, and I came from kind of a rough background, you know, tough family life, and bullied a lot in school. And I was a big fan of the TV series Kung Fu and Bruce Lee. And my brother-in-law was training with Master Frank Trejanowitz in Scranton, who at that time was the biggest karate person in Pennsylvania. He was well known. And I had been talking to my brother-in-law one day and said, "Hey, I'm tired of being bullied." He said, I'm a green belt with, you know, and my parents won't let me go. So he said, "I'll teach you in the backyard." So my first day, he took me out 2 hours in the hot sun. It was in July, 12 years old, and 2 hours of basics up and down his backyard. Did that for 3 months. And then he divorced my sister, my stepsister. I was forbidden to see him. But in that 3 months, he had taught me all the basic blocks and kicks. So I had learned the front stance, low block, high block, inside, outside block, you know, and the first 3 forms. And I did that for 3 years until a studio opened in Tunkhannock. It wasn't even a studio, it was the adult education program at the old 5th grade building. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, there were 3 teachers from, ironically, Master Trejanowitz. There were 2 Chodambos, which is a black belt candidate, and a lady that was a 2nd degree. And they started the program, and I'll never forget it because I walked in and they're like, "Well, we really don't want kids. We want the toughest guys." And I'm like, "Well, I'm staying here because that's what I want to do." So I took a class and I decided I'm going to do this till the day I die. And the rest is history. You know, I stayed.
So this would have put you, you started at 12, but
right.
not officially.
So I officially started to get
later?
rank when I was 15 years
15
old.
years
so I started to get rank. I was a sophomore in high school. I was 15. And I started to get rank. When I was a junior, I was a green belt. At that time, it was green belt with 2 stripes, so that would be a 5th gup. I think you guys call them Q.
Yes, Q.
Yeah.
KYU.
So that would be a 5th gup. And the instructors that had started the program were all fighting amongst themselves. And they had given me a key to the studio because it was close to my home. So I would walk up before class, open the store, make sure the bathrooms had toilet paper, I'd clean the floor, you know, sweep the floors, get the heat on or the air conditioning on before class. And one day I did that, and then it was time for the kids' class and no instructors. So here I am, and I'm like, what do I do? So I taught the class. Well, then the adult class comes in, and there were 3 guys that were my senior. They were red belts. And they're like, "I don't want to teach. I don't want to teach." And I'm like, "All right, I'll teach." So I started teaching. And that's how I started teaching. Wow. So I was a junior in high school, 1981, teaching. And I drove so many people out of the studio because I thought everybody should do what I do. You know, like, no knowledge. You know, just, we're going to drill, we're going to kill it. And I don't care if you're 55, you should be able to do what I do because I'm just a kid. You know, it's just ridiculous stuff. And I taught for that person who was the only one that left until 1988. In 1983, I met Grandmaster Shin, my teacher, that I stayed with till he passed away in 2012. In 1985, I started training directly under him, traveling down to Philadelphia and training with him for 8 hours at a time, coming back, running this other guy's studio. And then 1988, he goes, you know what? I think you should leave and open your own studio. This guy never comes around. I've heard some funny things about him. So I did. So I've been on my own since 1988.
1988.
And I was like, well, what do you want me to call the school? He goes, you call it Robinson's because you're in Tunkhannock. Everybody knows you. So
yeah,
that's what I did.
Yeah, okay. 1988. And at that time, were you across the street from where we are now, or was it a different street?
No, in 1988, I was on the corner above Facets, which is now a law firm.
Yeah, okay.
I was sharing it with the dance studio.
Okay.
I was there, and then when that guy who had the other studio was arrested for abusing children, I waited 6 months, and then I took over his space because I needed more room. And then I was there for 10 years looking at this building saying, boy, God, if you would give me that building, I would really like to expand my, so I just got, if you could bless me with that,
yeah.
I promise I'll dedicate it to you, and I'll do, and that's went from there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me back up for one second. I'd like to ask, your parents would not let you train?
No, my mom would, my stepfather was kind of a harsh guy. Thought karate was the biggest waste of time. Saw no potential in me in anything. Just told me how stupid I was and worthless, which is all in my book. But so I would sneak out. After my brother-in-law divorced my sister for those 3 years, we lived right by the high school. So I would go every day over to the football field, and I would practice the stuff he showed me for an hour and then go home.
Okay.
And in the wintertime, I would go over in the wintertime, in the cold, with my boots on, and practice for an hour and then go home. And he didn't know what I was doing because he didn't pay attention. So,
okay. And
then when the actual adult education class started, my mom gave me the $25 to go, and I'm going to the library. And when he found out what I was really doing, he was not happy, but by then it was too late.
Wow. So I've interviewed a couple. The reason I asked that question, sir, is I've interviewed some people whose parents didn't want them to train in martial arts because it was violent. They didn't want them to be a fighter. So I just wanted to. I was just curious.
Wasn't that they just thought it was a waste of time, and there was no use for martial arts. I live in a small town. What are you going to do with it? You're wasting your time. Kind of thing.
Let's say back in the 80s as well, or 70s, 80s, it wasn't well known. Right?
No,
I mean, it was just barely coming on the scene. Let's say maybe with kung fu and stuff.
Right.
But around Tunkhannock,
yeah, it's a farming community.
Yes,
wasn't well known.
Exactly.
I think in Tunkhannock then, in '76, there were only 2 people I knew of that did martial arts in Tunkhannock. A kid that was a couple years ahead of me in school, and he was traveling to Scranton to train with Master Chijanowicz, and my brother-in-law. Yeah. And then when I started, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't want anybody to know. And then when they finally opened that studio, that was, I think, 1979. No, it was 1980 because I was a sophomore. When they started teaching that adult in the 5th grade building, that's when Tunkhannock started accepting it a little bit. A lot of people were in and out. I mean, I started in a class of 50 people. By the time I got my black belt in 1983, they had already cycled through probably 400 people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was the only one that was in the original class that made it. Yeah.
Wow. So let's talk about some of the differences from back then to now.
Oh, differences in training, differences in attitude, differences in business, differences in
training and attitude is what I would most curious about, because like I said, in all honesty, I really thought I'd come in here and the air conditioning would be on.
No.
I mean, that's the American idea of a lot of dojos, and barely break a sweat and go home. You never have to wash the gi. And
that's because of the business model in America now. For years people taught martial arts out of the love of martial arts. They trained, they got benefits, and they wanted to turn out high quality students and get the benefit of confidence and able to defend yourself, and you were tough and you could take a beating if you had to. That kind of thing. It changed around the late 80s because business people realized, hey, I can make money teaching martial arts. Okay. So a lot of people now, what they do is, and I don't judge anybody, you do what you want. It's about having a lot of students, making everybody happy, lowering the standard a little bit so everybody feels good about what they're doing. Then they bring in their family and their friends, and you can make a lot of money. I've got friends that make $40,000 a month teaching martial arts. They've got air-conditioned studios. Their classes are 45 minutes. Everybody feels good. Awesome. But what's the quality of the student? Yeah. I see it as I'm obligated. If you come to me and want to take a martial arts lesson, why do people go to karate schools? To learn self-defense. No one comes to a karate school and says, hey, I want to learn forms, I want to learn weapons, I want to compete in tournaments, and I want to feel good about it. No one does that. It's, I want to get in shape, and I want to be able to defend myself. All those other stuff are add-ons. So I've always taken it as a kid that was bullied, I want to give my students the best opportunity to defend themselves no matter where they are. So the training that I do is, if I can make money, great, but I don't focus on money. If you treat the students right and you give them a high quality class, the money will take care of itself. So the way I teach my students is the way I was taught, with little modifications. I don't hit them with a shinai. I don't yell at them. I don't degrade them. Like we were always told, you know, that technique is horrible. You need to, you know, jazz it up. I don't do that, you know. So what we do is, when I started, the kids class was an hour and a half. I took the kids class. The adult class was 2.5 hours. I took the adults class. So I was in the studio 4 hours a day, training, because I loved it. And the instructors were a little abusive verbally, and they could be physically, but I was already used to that from my home life. So it's like, you're not going to drive me out. You're actually making me comfortable, because I can relate to this. If that makes any sense.
Yes.
So our training is, my main focus is on, I want them to be in really good physical shape. I want to build their confidence, not lying to them and saying, hey, you're awesome when they're not. Say, that's a good job, but you can do, try this and see if it doesn't get better. But I want them to have the opportunity to be able to defend themselves. Self-defense is number one.
Very good.
And then I teach, of course, the traditional forms, because that's history. You don't want to lose history.
Right.
That's how I do it. I don't use air conditioning, because air conditioning, I think, is not healthy, first of all. I want people to sweat, get the toxins out. I want people to be uncomfortable. Because when you work through your uncomfortableness, that's how you grow mentally, physically, and spiritually. If you're always comfortable and you've never had a struggle, how are you going to grow? We learn from pain and struggle, and that's another chapter in my book that I wrote. So it's that's my philosophy. That, you know, who knows? I could be way out there, but I can say this: this is a town of 1,700 people. That's a small town. I've got 200 and some black belts on the wall. Out of that 200 and some, even though I don't focus on tournaments, 190 of them have been tournament champions. That includes world, regional, and East Coast champions. We've got 28 grand champions. Your friend Drew Hobbs has won 3 grand championships in America, and he won the Netherlands grand championship. So Steve Garnicki, you know Steve, he's won 2 grand championships. So, you know, even though I don't focus, we go to 2 tournaments a year. Maybe 3. I don't push them. That's not my emphasis. If you want to train for that, I'll train you, but I don't really care if you go or not. That's not my focus.
That's actually maybe a bit of ignorance on my part, but a little bit of another myth that a lot of dojos or studios in the States are tournament-based, tournament-focused. I think a lot of them are.
A lot of them are, yeah. It's
and that's
like they think that trophy and that medal means something.
Yeah.
You know, you can meet, I've met people in my travels, and I've traveled and taught all over the world, who have won numerous tournaments, great point fighters. Put them in a self-defense situation, they can't fight the way over a paper bag.
Right.
But yet they've won 5 grand championships in point fighting. Well, that's not reality. You know, what do you do when someone latches onto you and they're like choking you, not with their arms out straight, with a light grip. Their elbows are bent and they're squeezing the stuffing out of your throat. That's when people panic, you know, so that's...
Absolutely.
Different.
So outside of Tang Soo Do, you've also trained in some different martial arts.
Yeah, I studied boxing for 3 years because I had a guy come into the karate school when I was 20, and he was a boxer in the Navy. And he said, hey, you want to spar? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So he said, okay, we'll do a couple rounds. So the first rounds, I was kicking the crap out of him, you know, because back then I was a real good kicker. I kicked high. Second round, he's like, heck with this. And he got inside and he worked me over. And I'm like, Third round, I couldn't even touch him because he figured out my kicks, and I didn't really have any hands. So I was like, I need to study boxing. So I went down to Scranton to a guy named Paul Hook O'Malley, who was training professional and Golden Glove boxers. And for the first 6 months, he put me in front of a mirror.
With a name like O'Malley, he had to be.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Paul Hook O'Malley was his name. I'd walk into his gym. It was Northeast Fitness Center at the time. And he'd give me a piece of cinnamon gum. And he'd put a little half of a rubber ball in my hand. And he'd put me in front of a mirror. And for 2 hours, he'd have me throw a jab and just squeeze that ball. He says, your jab is your #1 weapon. He says, if you get the jab down well, you'll be able to knock people out with your jab, because that sets everything else up. But I was like, yeah, whatever. So I did that for 6 months. Then he taught me the right cross, and then he taught me the hook. And I did that for 2 years with him, 2 or 3 years. And he like wanted me, I said, I'm not here to get in the ring. I don't want to get punched in the head. I just want to learn the skills. So I got in the ring one day. I came back. I was in the ring with some friends of mine, and we were going at, and I actually knocked somebody out with my jab by accident. And I was like, oh man, I'm really sorry. But so yeah, I mean, that was the boxing. I did Hapkido for a long time with several different Hapkido teachers. I've done jiu-jitsu. I trained with Wally J for very small, only through seminars.
Very well-known name. Yeah.
Oh yeah, small circle jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And when I went to him, I said, look, sir, I'm not here to get belts in your system. My focus is World Tang Soo Do. But my instructor, Grandmaster J. Chul Shin, said, by the time you're a second-degree black belt, you've got your basic system, you've got your roots. Now you go out and study other things, bring it back, and you can enhance our stuff. So I said, I want the essence of what you do. I want to learn the most important principles of your art, so I can improve my, and he was like, I appreciate your honesty. So he showed me. And the biggest thing I got from him is the concept of push-pull, two-way action. And that's when you do a joint lock. Like we always do a joint lock and we're kind of like locking them. His thing was, it's like a water spigot. You're going to push with this and you're going to pull with this and amplify the pain. And my self-defense stuff went through the ceiling. You know, it's so much easier to break people's joints when you're doing two-way action and not thinking about simple things, you know, like one-dimensional. I did some Eskrima, I did some Arnis, I did some Cali. All fun
Arnis
stuff.
And Cali. Eskrima and Arnis are both focused on the short staff.
Right. Actually, all three of them are you know, Filipino arts, depending on which section of the Philippines you come from. But it's anything you do with a machete, a stick, or a knife, you can do with your empty hand. So everything, like the one guy taught me the pattern of 16 angles. Another guy said, "Oh, I'll teach you 21 angles." They're all the same. How many angles really are there? Think about it. You can come from the right? Yes. You can come from the left. You can come from the right up. You can come from the left up. You can come from the right across. You can come from the left across. You can go up and you go down. Those are your basic angles. But then they built on it. That's like Hapkido. They really have like 6 basic techniques, but they say they've got 2,000 because they build on the basic 6.
Hapkido is also a Korean style of martial arts.
Yes. Actually, Jihan Jae is considered by many people to be the founder of Hapkido. But he was a student of Cho Young-sul. Now, the way I understood and the way it was explained to me by my original Hapkido teacher is Cho Young-sul and Mura Yushiba from Aikido were both students of Takida. Takida taught Daitaru Aikido Jiu-Jitsu, which is, I don't know if you know anything about these guys. Very brutal form of martial arts where they broke bones and destroyed joints.
Jiu-Jitsu sounds familiar even from Japan.
So Daitaru Aikido Jiu-Jitsu came from Takida. So he actually taught Mura Yoshiba, who had a religious experience, and made the art of Aikido so it was less damaging, it was more gentle. Well, Cho Young-sul, you know, took it and made it a little more gentle, but harsher than Aikido. So, you know, you study Hapkido the way with my original teacher that I trained with. Joint locking, throwing, sweeping, great kicks to devastate. But then, you know, there's different Hapkido organizations. The problem with Hapkido, which is a great art, is it's not organized. I think Master John Godwin and Master Ken McKenzie, they spent a lot of time with Jihan Jae, and they're organizing Hapkido in a way that it's easier to teach and it's got a structure. And because they're both great masters now, and Jihan Jae has since retired. I don't know if you saw Bruce Lee's movie. What was that one? Game of Death.
Yes.
When he goes up and he fights the guy in the gold trimmed. That was Jihan Jae. So yeah. So it's just fascinating how, but Hapkido was never. It was always like a supplemental art to Tang Soo Do, Taekwondo, because it wasn't really well structured. Where these guys are really structured. Like every Hapkido organization has its own curriculum. Where Grandmaster John Godwin and Master Ken McKenzie have really structured it and laid it out in a much more organized fashion. So, but there's a lot of Hapkido, and it's all good. There is no bad Hapkido organization as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about Tang Soo Do, because, you know, in the sense of martial arts, there's this term karate.
Right.
In America, everything's karate.
Right.
Typically everything, right?
Right.
And maybe now with UFC over the last decade or more, maybe just general MMA or martial arts is a term that a lot of people use, but still karate is the main name, right? Which, if we get down to brass tacks there, karate's from Okinawa.
Correct.
Tang Soo Do is from Korea.
Yeah, Tang Soo Do is from Korea.
Tang Soo
Yeah,
Do.
Tang. It's spelled Tang, pronounced Tang.
Okay.
And you ask, and you get different histories. Watching it, I think Tang Soo Do, they give China a lot of credit.
Okay.
For what
we
we
do too, as Americans.
Right. Everybody should.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think Tang Soo Do is a lot like Okinawan martial arts. You know, if you watch our forums, they're same as Okinawan forums.
Yeah.
And Shodan, same thing.
Yes.
Kind of thing. So I don't get, you know, as I've gotten older and trained longer and longer, I stay in Tang Soo Do because that was my root. That's my love and my passion. But I don't get into these great extensive histories of this is what this isn't, because let's be honest, a lot of the stuff that we're being told, no one ever knows the exact truth.
Yep.
Like we were talking earlier, even the stuff you're being told, your grandmaster's, oh, we really don't know that person. So I'm not going to say that's what it is. I personally believe that Wonki, you know, spent some time with an Okinawan and a Japanese and Korean. It's got Korean flavor. For example, Okinawans don't do crescent kicks.
Right.
Tang Soo Do does.
Right.
You guys don't do knife hand blocks. We do. In fact, you guys don't even use the word block.
Right.
You use the word thrust.
Right.
You know, we still use the word block, even though I tell my students there's no such thing as a block in martial arts. We call it a block, but it's really not a block.
Yeah. In generic, we do too, but in reality, there's no.
There are no blocks.
The word uke means to receive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because think about it from a I'm always about self-defense. From a self-defense perspective, if someone's throwing strikes at you and you're blocking, what are you doing? You're trying not to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
You're totally on the defense. Sooner or later, you're going to miss and get hit.
Yeah.
Right? What animal in the world throws a block when they fight? I've seen mountain rams on you know, nature shows when I was at home fight. Neither one threw a block.
Right.
I've seen two dogs fight. Neither one threw a block. Right?
Yeah.
I've seen white-tailed deer fight.
Yep.
Neither one throws a block. So why are we throwing blocks? And then you get into that zone of, I'm going to block and counter.
Yeah.
You're setting yourself up for failure. There is no block. There is only preemptive strike. When you're talking so much aggressively, and I've got my hands up, I'm backing away, I don't want any trouble, and you continue, it's only going to go so far before I realize and I'm going to preemptive strike you.
Yes. Yep.
I'm not going to stand back and block. What's the best thing to do when someone attacks you? Move into them.
In. Yeah.
Because they don't expect that, right?
Yep.
You've already taken them out of the fight psychologically, because people attack people. Why? They think they're weaker than them or dumber than them, and they're not going to fight back.
Right.
So when someone throws a punch and you've moved in and you've already hit their carotid artery, hit their eyes, their mind's already like, what the heck just happened? I'm dazed and confused. That's called a conscious knockout. They're wide awake, but consciously they're knocked out. It's like, you know, I don't know what's next. By the time they think about it, you're going to hit them again and again and again. They're not going to get the opportunity to do anything else. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So that's how I look at it.
Yep. Absolutely.
So yeah, Tang Soo Do, it's my passion, it's my love. But I love all martial arts. I don't believe there's any one better than the other. We have a lot of forms. Grandmaster Shin was big on always working basics, to get to the point of Mushin, empty thought, mindless action. You know, every once in a while we do spontaneous self-defense. Well, just asking people, whenever you're ready to attack me, I don't care how you do it.
Yeah.
And they'll say, what'd you just do to me? I'm like, I don't know. I just reacted. That's what you want to get to. I don't have a set that I'm going to do this when this happens.
In your class, do you typically run in the beginning of class, like we ran through warm-ups tonight? Is that a general class, what we did tonight, the warm-ups with the punches, the kicks?
Yeah, we started every class with some calisthenics to get the body warmed up. We always start, Grandmaster Shin always said, start with Papuki, which is the basic punch exercise.
Okay.
And the philosophy behind that is, one, you want to have a hard punch, but two, no matter how much you train, you're almost always going to punch first. And what I normally do, but because you were here I didn't, what I normally do is we do our Papuki traditional karate punching. And then we do some boxing punching where we're really getting a natural fighting stance.
Okay, I'm
we
glad you said that.
Right.
Because I was going to ask, after going to boxing training, did you incorporate
Yeah. Because think about it. When you're on the street, no one punches like this.
Yes.
So I get my students to understand how to jab and how to rotate using their hip, bend the knee, rotating the ball of your foot for that power. Because there are people who still believe that the traditional karate punch is the most powerful punch in the world. Not saying it's not, but you throw a good right cross and you put your whole body behind it, that is a powerful punch.
Sure is. Yeah.
Powerful punch.
So your master, he would run the warm-ups pretty much the same way, and you've kind of kept that same.
Yeah, I've kept the tradition. So it's we might do jumping jacks and push-ups and sit-ups first, but it's always papuki first, and then after papuki, we might do some other hand techniques, and then it's usually some conditioning, and then it's line drills up and down the floor.
So in Okinawa, we would call that kihon, basics.
Right,
It's a generic translation of basic, and we do it the same thing, always.
Usually 15 to 20 minutes, 10 minutes of hands, just drilling up, and the pace is fast because we're conditioning. You know, I want people to build their cardio, muscle strength, muscle endurance, and then we do kicks, and then we might do pad kicks for a while, you know, to the power. I mean, kicking in the air is fun, but I know people that have kicked in the air their whole life, never kicked anything. And then they wonder why they can't break a board. Well, you never kicked anything. You got to kick something. I'm not big on kicking heavy bags anymore because I did a lot of that when I was young, and I think that's how I damaged my hips. Because think about it. If you're kicking a heavy bag for an hour, where's that energy going? It's going right up into the hip socket. I've had both my hip replaced because I did a lot of heavy bag work when I was young. And think about Bill Wallace. He's had both his hips replaced. Why is that? A lot of heavy bag work, right? And Bill Wallace was like phenomenal fighter. So,
Well, we were talking earlier, too, before we were doing the interview about the punching Makiwara. And you've experienced shoulder issues, and so have I. I'll say it by being the stupid American. You know, trying to punch so hard, you know, I got to break this thing or whatever, but your body takes the damage first.
That's the one thing I tell my students. I'm like, you guys have the benefit of being trained by an instructor that loves you and cares about you and has done the science and the research behind it. Because I've been a personal trainer for 15 years. I've been a nurse, you know, since 2003, and I've spent a lot of time studying and researching and going to physical therapists and getting ideas. No one told, you know, back then it was military style. You know, you did the push-ups on the concrete floor, and you know they'd punch it a little bit, but then they'd set up the Makiwara board, and they would say, "I want you to punch it as hard as you can." Where's that energy going? It's going to reverberate up through your elbow and into your shoulder. Well, that's just going to destroy the joint. You know, my shoulders are destroyed from that. So I tell my students, I was taught wrong. You don't have to pound that hard. You just have to be hitting it, and that's going to condition over time. You know, I can remember doing 1,000 punches a day, 3 times a week. You know, the Makiwara would be all bloody, and I'm like, oh, look how tough I am. Well, after my brain surgery, they did a body bone scan, and they're like, man, you got the hands of a 90-year-old. I'm like, oh, well, that stops. I instantly stopped hitting the Makiwara after that. So, yeah, it's just, we didn't know what we didn't know. Today, most good instructors do research. They're constantly researching. How can I train my students to prevent injury while strengthening their body and building muscle strength and muscle endurance? I incorporate everything I do in the martial arts into my personal training. I got these football players that come in, and they want to push all these heavy weights, but their technique is ridiculous. So I'm like, what are you doing? Well, I'm going to do 10 reps with that. I'm like, no. Let's lighten the weight a little bit. Let's slow it down. Time under tension, you're going to build muscle, and you're going to build strength. I don't want you to do 10 reps and you're done. I want you to push that weight for a minute. And they're like, I'm so sore. I'm like, yeah. And you're not going to have the injuries from all that repetitive motion. So,
I've asked other senseis about the Makiwara in Okinawa, and there's some mixed reviews about it. I know some that don't punch it anymore. I know some that still do, but a little bit easier. There's still some that punch the floor. You know, maybe a little bit softer now than they did. I try to tell, I have 2 daughters, a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I won't let them punch anything except a soft bag. And even when we're on a hardwood floor, and we'll do push-ups on our knuckles, but not for the reason of the knuckles per se, but for the strengthening of the wrist. When you go in that down position and the angle it puts on your wrist, which is better for punching. And then actually my sensei, In North Carolina, went through the same thing, punching the Makiwara, you know, too hard, this and that. But he said, no, if you want to do that the right way, do the push-ups. He's the one that told me that. And then just draw back and lightly touch the floor. Just lightly touch it.
Right.
So you know it's there, hardwood floor. Then do push-ups, draw, and just lightly touch it. But I never punched the Makiwara with him in the time that I trained in North Carolina. We had one in our other dojo. I'd punch it, but rarely. Just different.
I think it was ego back then. I mean, think about it. Most of the people that taught in the 70s and early 80s were ex-military.
Yeah.
Or they were people that trained with ex-military,
Yeah.
and they wanted to be tough. They had to show tough. So they brainwashed us into thinking that that's what we needed to do.
Yeah.
And we ended up with injuries.
Yep.
I mean, all the guys that started way back in the 70s and early 80s, they've all had many, many problems.
And how many of them are still training now?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I've been training. I've never stopped.
Yep.
Even after my surgery, if I have a surgery, within 2 days I'm training on some level, doing something. I don't ever want to stop, because that's not good. But what we were talking about earlier about boxing, I tell people all the time on the street, you're never going to punch somebody. The palm of your hand will do the same damage. A knife hand is even better because it's, you know, smaller and it hits those nerves.
Mm-hmm.
Grab the eyes, you know, poke the eyes, whatever. You don't need to punch.
Right.
You know, the metacarpals are the smallest bones in the body.
Yep.
Metatarsals, smallest bones in the body.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Your master, I'd like to talk about him a little bit more if
Sure,
you can.
sure.
Your master was originally from Korea,
Yes, Grandmaster Jay Chol Shin was from Korea.
born in Korea, but did he travel to the States often? Lived in the States? How did you get your training under him?
No, he became well known because he was Chuck Norris's teacher. In fact, he never called Chuck Norris Chuck Norris. He always called him by his real name, Carlos.
I didn't know it was
Yeah,
his name.
his real name is Carlos Ray Norris. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm the king of Chuck Norris trivia.
Okay.
But yeah, he trained with Grandmaster Shin over in Korea, along with the current Grandmaster of our organization, Grandmaster Bob Over, and a bunch of guys. And they would train over there 4 to 6 hours a day. They got their black belts in 6 to 9 months because they were only there a short time.
But training long time.
But training, long time training. And so Grandmaster Shin had all these guys, and they came back to the States, and they would say, hey, we want you to come over. He goes, no, I'm doing this thing over there. And then his instructor, Wong Ki, had sent over 2 masters at different times to start a Tang Soo Do organization, and they really couldn't get it going. They had some following, but not a huge following. So in 1960...
Where did he send them?
Usually, I think one was East Coast and one was West Coast.
Long Island, L.A., maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Like well, I think, yeah. It was Master Shim and Master... I don't want to get it wrong. I think it was Master Shim and Master Kim. I'm not positive.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. But they had some success. But Grandmaster Shin had all these military guys over here and had a good rapport.
Okay.
So in 1968, Wong Ki sent him over, and he opened his first studio in Burlington, New Jersey. And instantly had a following. Built up the U.S. Tang Soo Do Federation. It was Tang Soo Do Mudokwan then. All my certificates have Grandmaster Shin's signature on them.
Okay.
And then Grandmaster Wong Ki said, okay, I'm going to send my son over, and he's going to take over. So my instructor left. He was kind of like hurt because he built this up, and then so he left and he stopped for a while. And then he respected his instructor so much, he went back to Wong Ki and asked for permission to start his own organization. And Wong Ki said, yeah, but you can't call it Mudokwan. I said, okay. So he started the World Tang Soo Do Association in 1982. Okay. And it exploded. You know, we're all over the world, and it's been a really good experience. Yeah. I asked him one time when he would teach a class, and we would train with him. When I first started training directly under him, it was an 8-hour class, no water break, no lunch, nothing. And every once in a while, he would get in a mood where he was really talkative, and he'd say, "Okay, class over. You can ask me any questions you want." So one day, somebody said, "Tell us about Chuck Norris," and it was the most encouraging thing to me because he said, "Carlos Norris," he goes, "nothing special." He said, "Not a great athlete, not really coordinated." He says, "But he first one to come to the studio, and he trained really, really hard. Last one to leave. He always pushed himself. He always worked hard." He says, "Carlos Ray Norris, make himself Chuck Norris." And I was like, wow, there's hope for me. Yep. You know? Yeah. And that was probably the most encouraging thing because, you know, coming from the background I had, you know, you're worthless, you're stupid, there's nothing. And now he's talking about Chuck Norris, wasn't especially coordinated, wasn't a great athlete. Yeah. And look what he turned, look what he made himself
Yeah.
because he believed in himself. And Chuck Norris didn't have a great background.
Okay.
Did you read any of his books?
No, I did not.
I read one of his books way back when, The Secret of Inner Strength. We had very similar backgrounds, except his dad was a drinker. My dad was just mean. My stepdad was just mean. My dad ran off when I was born. So, but yeah, we had kind of similar backgrounds. But he had a very strong mother figure. So, but yeah, his book is great. If you ever get the chance to read it, The Secrets of Inner Strength.
Secrets of Inner Strength.
It's a great book.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, Grandmaster Shin always says Carlos Norris. Never called him Chuck.
And did he stay in America then for the rest of his
Yeah,
life?
from 1968 on, he's been in America.
Okay.
Yeah. Right before he passed away, we built our world headquarters in North Carolina. Ironically, Burlington, North Carolina.
Burlington.
How weird is that?
What's in
Burlington, New Jersey.
What's in Burlington?
Exactly. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
I was like, why are we putting headquarters there? But hey, it was his dream. We have a beautiful building there. He got to see it, and then unfortunately he passed away.
Well, he got to see it.
But he got to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful facility, and it's,
Wow. Why Burlington?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was really no. Our biggest region is Region 8, which is where you're at now.
Region 8.
Region 8. It's the biggest region in the association. I think.
Which goes where?
It's New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Virginia. It was Connecticut. Now Connecticut's Region 9. Well, there were pieces of Connecticut. Who am I forgetting? Maryland. I think I said Delaware, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like 5 states, basically.
Okay.
Is Region 8. That's the biggest region we have.
How many regions are there?
33?
33 regions.
Yeah, we're all over
just
the world.
United States. Oh, that's worldwide regions.
Worldwide
Or is that-
regions, yeah.
is that-
Yeah.
Okay.
He breaks them down, like there's West Coast, North, Midwest,
Midwest.
South, Region 7 is like Florida, and,
Also,
Region 9 is Connecticut.
South America,
Massachusetts. Oh, yeah.
Canada,
We've got schools in
Europe.
Canada, Argentina, we're all over.
Because you
Germany.
yourself have taught, you mentioned.
I've taught in
Europe.
Sweden. Yeah, I've taught in Sweden, Germany, Holland. Trying to think where else. Argentina, Chile, Dominican Republic. I'm having a brain freeze. I've kind of been all over.
Wow.
But that's something I promised him when he said to me when I was young, I want you to travel and help. I'm like, sure. And but I promised him that I would travel and teach. So even after he died, I started traveling more.
Yeah.
And I actually just got back from Alaska. We have studios in Alaska, and very good studios in Alaska. Oh yeah, Fairbanks Studios, rocking.
That's good.
That's a great
good.
studio, man. Those guys are animals up there.
So you do primarily, I think you told me three tournaments a year primarily.
Actually, no, we do. So this is an odd year. So this is 1999. I'm sorry, 2019. So we do the spring championship. It's a Region 8 spring championship. There's usually 400 competitors, 450. Okay. And then in the fall, we have our big Region 8, which is usually between 700 and 800 competitors. And then on even years...
Forms and sparring.
Forms, weapons, and sparring.
Forms, weapons, and sparring.
And creativity.
Okay.
And then on even years, like next year, 2020, we'll be down in North Carolina at Greensboro Coliseum.
Okay.
And that'll be the World Championship. So it's the even number of years we have World Championships. And there's usually between 1,500 to 2,200 competitors from all over the world.
Does the venue change each year?
No, we've been at Greensboro. Well, it used to.
Okay.
We've been at Greensboro Coliseum.
Burlington
now
and
for a while.
Greensboro are close enough that it makes sense then, I guess, if the headquarters are there.
Yeah. Well, that's why they do it, so people can see the headquarters.
Yep.
But it used to be like we'd be in Florida one year, we were in Anaheim, we were in Las Vegas. But then when they built the headquarters, we went.
Yep.
So I think, and we have the European Championships. They have them in Germany. I think it's in Nottingham this year.
Okay.
They've had them, all over Europe. So
Okay.
yeah, they get good exposure. Good exposure.
You speak Korean?
No. I speak. I'll do Korean terminology.
You do dojo Korean.
I do dojo Korean.
I do dojo Japanese.
Which is hysterical because all of us have our own slang. Like, for example, I'll say one thing, and you go to the western side of the state, it's completely different. You know how it is.
Yep.
He tried for 2 or 3 years. He gave us these books, and it was Korean. And at the end of our classes, we'd do 45 minutes of Korean. After the second year, he goes, "I give up. You guys just cannot learn Korean." So he just stopped. Now there are certain members in the association that can speak Korean, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
And my thing is this: I live in America,
Yeah.
so I speak English a lot in my class because you know, I've got a lot of kids. They
Yeah.
don't, you know, I'll say it in Korean, then I say it in English, and I have them to repeat it. But we only do it for the tradition. Like
Well, I think it's fantastic.
history. It's history.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
And it's something most people can't do.
Yep. Yep.
So
It's traditional.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yep. How many forms are there in Tang Soo Do?
Oh man, I'm gonna say right around 27. I might be
Okay.
missing. That's empty hand forms.
Empty
that's
hand
not
forms, yes,
that's
yes,
not
yes.
weapons. That's
Okay.
empty hands.
Okay.
27, 20. I don't want to use my fingers to add them up, but you got the 5 Pyongans. We have the 3 basics, so that's 8. Then you got Basai Shipsu, the 3 Naihanchis, Gento, Rohai, Kunsong Kun.
Oh man, that.
Seishan, Oship Sabo, Jian, and then we've got Seye Jankwan, the Grandmaster form, which is 99 moves, Wunsu. So there's a lot of forms.
Okay, there's a lot of overlap with
Yeah,
Okinawa.
absolutely,
A lot
absolutely.
of those terms. Which tonight we did Pinan Shodan through Yondan,
Right.
and we did Naihanchi Shodan.
Yes.
Which I was surprised that you did Naihanchi. I didn't know that you were going to do that.
Sure.
So you have Naihanchi Shodan Nidan Sandan as well.
Correct.
And then Pinan Shodan through Godan. Or
Yeah,
do
we call it Odan, but you call
Odan,
it Godan.
okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Go is 5.
Correct.
Yep, Godan. Now weapons. Approximately how many weapons?
So we have 3 staff forms, we have 3 sword forms, 1 cane form, and 1 dagger form.
Okay.
But I teach my students, certain students, not all. I also teach the nunchucks, I teach the kamas,
Okay.
and I teach the nibo, which comes from Goshin Jitsu, and that's taking the stick that you would use for the Filipino arts,
Mhm.
and you hold it in the middle.
Okay.
It's not so much the hard swing, it's more of a snapping,
Okay.
where you actually put it against your arm, and it's to stun people.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, I teach that kata as well.
Yep.
Only one of those.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Interesting. Now the students that come in here, I see over behind us in Okinawa we'd call it a bow.
Right. We call it a bong, B-O-N-G.
B-O-N-G.
Yeah, most people
Okay.
when they think of bong, they're thinking about that, you know,
Yeah,
that funny pipe.
yeah.
But no, it's Korean. It's bong,
The
B-O-N-G.
staff is called
Bong.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I just always heard it called staff, primarily in America. The students that come in here, children and adults, is it pretty much one curriculum? They're going to do it all?
I teach one curriculum. My thing is this: whether you're a child or an adult, what are adults?
Big kids.
They're just big kids. What are kids? They're little tiny adults. I teach the same. Now the pace might be different, but I teach the same curriculum.
Okay.
And I explain why their parents are here, what this is really about. Like a lot of people say, this isn't about funny games. When you strike somebody, if you're going to punch somebody, your goal is not to hit them here. Your goal is to take your fist and drive it through their face so it comes out the outside of their head. Visualize that. And I said, I know that's harsh, but that's the reality of the idea is to break the evil of someone's attack. You know, we're not mamby-pamby. If someone's going to attack you, your goal is to break the evil of their attack. Stop them.
Yep.
Otherwise, they're going to keep hurting you. So that's how we train.
Yep. I would like, if possible, to talk about your book. We've mentioned a couple
Sure.
times. I realize it's not a martial arts
It's not a martial arts
based book, but I'm interested in it because of your lifestyle that you've explained to me just a little bit already in this 2 hours that we've been here tonight, and how I feel it correlates into martial arts. So,
Right.
if you don't mind.
Well, for me, everything I do is about martial arts. So when I graduated from college, my degree was in criminology with a minor in psychology. So I was trying to get in the State Police Academy, and I was trying to get in the state prison system, and that was when affirmative action was big. So you know, I didn't get anything. I got bumped out by veterans preference, and which is okay, whatever. So I got a job as a psychotherapist, and I got a lot of training because, okay, now I want to understand what makes people tick. I want to know the psychology of why do people think the things they think and do the things they do. That will enhance my martial arts. Now I can read people better. I went to nursing school, you know, after, because I've always studied, you know, all this stuff, but I knew that I wasn't interested enough in certain things to really study it out. But if I went to nursing school, I'd be forced to study. So when you go to nursing school, you've got to know all the systems of the body, the organ systems in detail, and how they work and how they function. So you learn how they function. Now you know how you can disrupt them. And now it made my pressure point stuff and my other stuff make sense. So it really helped. So the book is actually about some of it's my life story, because I've had people say you should write your life, but I don't think my life's that interesting. But, okay. But it's actually about the 3 big lies told in America, and that we've all been told. One is the little guy can't get ahead. Huge lie. 2 is you have to go to college or you're going to struggle and not be successful. Another lie. 3 is that your genetics determine how long you're going to live and how healthy you're going to be. Another lie. So I start out with the book giving some of my background of my family. I talk about coming from a family of chaos and abuse, where there was no support, there was no affection, there was no... So I grew up afraid of people, very intimidated, bullied a lot. I talk about how I actually failed kindergarten, but they pushed me through because I was a quiet, polite kid. Then I went to first grade, and they pushed me through again. Second grade, they held me back. Again, because I couldn't sit still. My anxiety was so bad from PTSD from my home life that when I was in school, if I was sitting in a chair, my leg was going or I was rocking, and the teachers would just flip out on me. The other part of that was no one could understand me. Come to find out, I was tongue-tied. Let me back up. When I was 2, my family doctor told my mom to have me institutionalized. I was profoundly retarded because I couldn't talk. And I was very fearful. But it was from trauma going on in my house. So this new doctor came to town, took me there, he cut my tongue. I went to speech therapy, whatever. So I had problems in school because of severe anxiety and feeling stupid. And I talk about that in my book. And then so I talk about fear and lies in the book, and how we believe all these lies that aren't even true, that other people tell us. I talk about fear and how fear holds us back. Then I get into the 3 big lies that the world tells us. And then I get into the truth and how to be successful. And I do some social commentary. And I talk about the amazing, unusual gift of pain and struggle, and how we only grow through a certain amount of pain and struggle. Like, had I not had the pain and struggle of all the stuff I've been through, I probably wouldn't have came to karate. You know, I've got children in my karate school, and I talk to them and the parents all the time. I said, and the parents would be like, my son doesn't really try that hard. I don't know. I'm like, well, we give them what we can give them, but it's up to them to try. I said, let me tell you what I think. I said, you love your children. You're really good with your children. You communicate. You hug them. You kiss them. You love them. They have nothing to prove.
Yeah.
So they're here knowing if they screw up, you're still going to love them. Yeah. I said, myself and a lot of people in the studio didn't come from that background. So we're always looking for acceptance. Like, we want people to say, great job. You did a great job. Push, push, push. That's how I ended up, you know, getting as far as I did from a young age. The instructors would say, man, Kevin, you are a top student. I wanted to hear that because I pushed. And if they beat me, they say, go ahead and beat me. I'm not going to leave. So I talk about pain and struggle in the book and how it can benefit you. And you can either use it as a crutch or you can use it to propel you forward. And I talk about social commentary about the disconnected connected and how we're all distracted by entertainment and we're not thinking anymore. So that's what the book's about.
Yeah.
It's actually called Rising Above, a not so ordinary life. And I'll tell you how I got to that title, because I was when I stopped doing psychotherapy for a job, I started going to psychotherapy because one of my last assignments was I was working with people that were molested and sexually abused. And I had this group of women. And we were doing some real intense stuff, and everybody's crying in the room, and it's pretty intense, very sad stories. And this one lady was very traumatized, and she's screaming at me, "You don't know what it's like to be abused. You don't." And it was like this movie screen came out of the ceiling, and it was a flashback of when I was 12 years old and I was molested. I had completely blocked it. That's in the book as well. The whole experience, it came back so strong. So I ended up quitting that job and getting counseling myself for the PTSD. I always thought I had depression and stuff. And the counselor's like, no, Kevin, he's like, you were abused, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. He says, you have PTSD. I'm like, oh. So I went through all this counseling, and that's what the book's about. How to rise above all your crap and reach your goals. My goal was never to teach karate. I just wanted to shave my head, move to China, be able to defend myself and defend other people like Kwai Chang Caine did, right?
Yeah, yeah.
God had a different plan. You know, the instructor stopped coming in. I started teaching in high school. Fell in love with teaching. When I went to college, I dropped my speech class because I couldn't stand in front of 10 people and give a speech.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Grandmaster Shin says to me one year, I need you to speak at Black Belt Camp. Well, all right. Now I'm standing in front of 500 people giving a speech. First time in the history of the Black Belt Camp at that time, I got a standing ovation. And you know what I talked about? Snicker bar black belts. You're looking at, what's that mean? How, you know the Snicker bar commercial?
Yes.
I don't know how it is now, but back then, this was the 90s, early 90s. They do that commercial. It's so satisfying. You see somebody climbing up the mountain and they're really tired and they've got to stop and eat that Snicker bar and they get the energy to keep going. It's so satisfying. And then it ends the commercial. Snickers, it satisfies. So I talk about Snicker bar black belts. Are you satisfied? And why you shouldn't be. So when you're satisfied, you don't train as hard. Mm-hmm. You don't try to grow your school. Mm-hmm. You don't try to learn other things and share. Mm-hmm. You don't work on your mental and emotional strength. And then I talked about what we need to do. I got a standing ovation for 500 people, and I'm like, whoa. And then the Grandmaster got up and goes, I never know Kevin Robinson, who's so shy, such a powerful speaker, right? And then this motivational speaker gets up after me and he goes, well, I don't know what to do because that's a hard act to follow. And I'm sitting there going, what are you guys talking about? And then I fell in love with public speaking. Yeah. And so, and it's all about, because of pain. I never prepare a speech. I just talk from my heart and my head. Real. Got to be real.
That's it.
And I talk about that in the book.
Rising Above a Not So Ordinary Life.
Right. Because
authored by Tang Soo Do master Kevin J. Robinson. Yeah. Wow.
Because I had a not so ordinary life, but no one does. That's why That's why I put down the bottom, ordinary life, because nobody does. Yep. Everybody's got baggage to work through, right? Yep. I'm trying to get it. I self-published it. I'm trying to get it to a regular publisher because right now you can only get it off my website.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to put a picture up there. And speaking of website, if people want to get a hold of you in this metropolis of Tunkhannock, but people would drive from here to Scranton to train. People would drive from here to other cities. There's no reason they can't come the other direction.
Well, we actually do. I've got students that drive an hour and a half. They passed 10 karate schools to come to me.
Well, let's get the word out there for more. How can they find you? Facebook?
Facebook, just friend Kevin Robinson.
Kevin Robinson. And then
there's Robinson's Martial Arts Facebook page.
Robinson's Martial Arts.
I don't think that's private, is it? I've asked my guys because I don't know. No? And then my website, which I never even go on, is www.robinsonsmai.com.
Okay.
And that's how they can get a hold of me. Or they can just call me.
Okay.
570-836-4794.
But he doesn't have a phone.
I do, here.
Yeah,
I have a landline.
landline.
I'm a dinosaur. I don't have a cell phone.
No cell phone, not even a flip phone.
No, never had one. My brain surgeon said no, never.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Wow. Master Robinson,
thank you, my friend.
So
it was
much.
so nice
really
to meet you.
Appreciate it.
I'm so glad you came in.
I am very glad that you allowed me to come in and that you allowed me to do this interview. Thank you so much.
Anyone's allowed to come in and train anytime, and we try to learn from them too. A lot of guests come in, and what will happen is they'll train with us, and then we'll take them back and say, hey, show us some of your stuff. Because I want to know as much as I can, because you're never going to know it all.
Never going to know it all. And we've got 2 legs, 2 arms, a head, hopefully on top.
And I tell my students, you could live to be 100 years old for 100 lifetimes. You're never going to get it all. There's always something more to learn.
Yep, absolutely. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again so much. And thank you for tuning into the Okinawa Karate Podcast, coming to you from Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania at Robinson's Martial Arts. last one.